Budget committee to order.
And I'm going to call the Human Resources meeting for January 6, 2025.
Do we have any citizens communication?
Yes, and I was looking to see which meeting and it, I think it's, must be the budget.
Can, Tim Coggin, please?
Hi, thank you for having me to speak. You may have seen me before, Kim Coggin, here to talk about the adequate facilities tax and the study that we would like to encourage you guys to consider voting for and approving so that we can look at alternate forms of revenue due to the capital needs of the county. We have jails that need to be built, schools, and this is another source of revenue. Of course, we do need a study authorized to look at it in relation to the other education impact fees. So Grady Tabor and I don't know if that name's familiar, have looked at this for 6 years now, I guess, and understand that a study has to be commissioned before anything could be voted on to approve to allow that adequate facility tax to be moved to the maximum that's permitted under the Act. So I'm just here to speak on behalf and ask all of you to consider approving the study so that we can see if that's a viable source of additional revenue, knowing that we'll have property tax increases coming to pay for capital projects. Thank you.
I think our minutes are deferred for the budget committee until the next committee meeting.
And they are for the HR as well. After you've been reading, HR, get this on the floor, and then you follow. Okay. So we have before us on the HR committee, the resolution appropriating and amending the 24-25 Sheriff's Office and benefits budgets by $1,582,155.18 to provide funding for additional staffing needs. Revenues come from unappropriated county general funds. Got a motion for approval. Move to approve. Second. First and second. All right. Madam Chair.
Do we put this on? Okay. Resolution 1259, resolution appropriating and amending the 2024-25 Sheriff's budget, office and benefits budget by $1,582,155.18 to provide funding for additional staffing needs, revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, thank y'all. I know this is a special call meeting, and I appreciate y'all coming out tonight. I'm glad the weather cooperated, and I was a little worried that we might end up maybe getting postponed because of that, but thankfully we didn't. So if you recall, back prior to July, when I came to y'all and requested a total of 18 personnel, and ultimately the commission approved half of that. So 9 of the 18 were approved, and then I was given the direction to come back to y'all at about this time of the year and take a look at the fund balance and see what that looked like and address the additional request for the other personnel at this time. And so that's what I'm doing. I will tell you that of these 9 positions, 5 of them would include staff members that are part of my restructure within the organization. So now that I've been in office since March, I've had the opportunity to put together a committee, people mainly in the file ranks, not necessarily ranks, but in the files to look at efficiencies within our department and look at, who should report to who and how we could better be efficient as an organization and how we could do our job better to serve the citizens of Williamson County. And so ultimately what we have come up with is buckets, if you will, and having different divisions, which I call buckets under the sheriff, that will report up to me ultimately, but will help me with accountability across the organization and give us the availability and the presence within the divisions across the organization that have been problematic from trying to do it in the old structure, which was everything funneling up to one person and then ultimately to the sheriff. So that's just 5 of the positions that are within this 9. We will allocate those positions where they're needed. If you'll remember, my priority coming out of the campaign was an SRO in every school, every day, all day. And we're doing that. And we are currently only 3 SRO deputies short now in the organization. So we have done really well on the recruitment front. We're, I think, 8 down on the patrol side, but we're only a total of 17 bodies down in the whole organization, which is really remarkable when, I don't have the exact numbers, but I was told earlier today that that number this time last year was probably closer to 60. So 17 compared to 60 today compared to this time last year is really remarkable. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, anybody on HR have any questions? Go ahead.
Sheriff, could you speak to the 4 additional deputies and kind of what that does to allow for vacations and some of the coverage
Absolutely.
lapses?
Yeah, so as it relates to the SROs in particular, we want to have an SRO in every school, every day. So it limits their ability to take off because when they're gone or when they're out, we have to have somebody that fills their position. I don't want that school vacant. So we're going to move people, whether it be a rover, whether it be a lieutenant, whether it be a captain, whether it be the sheriff, if it gets right down to it. I don't want a school without a deputy at any time. So it will give us some more flexibility. The closer we get to full staff, having these additional personnel will give us that flexibility for them to take off, for them to get training. And that's the same across the organization, whether it be in patrol, whether it be in court services, or wherever that may be. So it absolutely helps us. It not only gives us the latitude to have a higher visibility in the community, which is something that I hear frequently from people all across the county, is how they feel like that they see deputies more now than maybe in the past. I don't know why that is, but I like it. I like hearing that. So I think that's huge. And I think high visibility is a deterrent in and of itself. So to that extent, I think that's a good thing.
Greg or Betsy?
Yes, so BBR, Ms. maybe a question for you, but we have this in the fund balance, these funds?
We currently do have this available in fund balance currently, yes.
And I do want to thank Claire in HR for working with me on this. She's been very instrumental, as has Phoebe and the mayor, in supporting this request. So to that extent, I'm grateful.
So Betsy, go ahead.
Thank you. Sheriff, Mr. Sheriff, how about patrols? Can you give us a little update on that with these 9 officers?
Sure.
How is that?
So right now, I'll describe this as a wheel, okay? Because we feed out of the jail.
Yep.
So everything has to happen kind of in a circular motion because it's kind of like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
So when I move somebody from the jail to the road, then now I'm short in the jail. So I've got to have somebody backfilling those at all times. And then when we move people across the organization from a selection process standpoint, whether it be a promotion or a lateral move, whether it be a detective, whether it be court services, what have you, then somebody's got to backfill that in patrol because those positions are filled from patrol. So for every action, there's a reaction, right?
Right.
So right now, trying to get these people that we've got designated coming out of the jail trained up to be certified so they can go onto the road and make sure that they have their field training under their belt and that they're properly trained to go out on the road. That's kind of the predicament we're in now is we're at the mercy of getting these people into the academy at the state level and then getting them through the FTO program before they can actually count toward manpower. We've got the names in place and we've got the dates, but it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over years. So I've got people scheduled all throughout 2025 to go to the academy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sheriff, these other 4, does that include your FTO and your recruiting position?
Yes.
And so just kind of a summary on those 2, the FTO and the recruiting.
Well, I already have my FTO coordinator in the room, Lieutenant Jim Hickman. Raise your hand back here. So Jim is a retired Metro Nashville. He ran their academy for many years, and he comes to us most recently from the ATF. And so I kind of coerced him into coming back to the county. He started his career at the county. And, so what comes around, or what goes around comes around, and now he is back where he started his career originally. And Jim has extensive experience and knowledge in all things law enforcement, and he is getting us back to square one as it relates to our field training program, making sure that we have consistent training across the organization. We're not doing it in different ways based on different training. Everybody's going to the same training. We basically made everyone reapply. I have 31 designated field training officers. Every one of those 31 are going back through the same class, including Lieutenant Hickman, and we're going to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music and that everyone has the same level of training. Unfortunately, in years past, and this is just a reality, when we implemented the SRO program, many of those folks went to the academy, and once they got out of the academy, they went straight into the school or straight into the court. So they never actually had field training. In other words, they didn't get familiar with our county. They didn't get familiar with the things that we do internally, the things that you need to know to be a deputy in Williamson County. We've got to go back and retrain those folks to make sure that when the public sees them in a car, in a uniform, they assume that a deputy is a deputy. But not all deputies have the same level of training. And we want to get back to where every deputy has the same level of training.
In your recruiting position.
In the recruiting position, obviously, we're doing really well in the recruiting position now. I label that a recruiting position, but that's going to be a position that really wears a lot of hats. In talking with our county attorney, we're looking to bring our extra duty jobs back in-house. We currently contract with someone to do that for us. And we've ran into a lot of problems as it relates to people out here in uniforms, in cars, and the county's really not getting any benefit out of it. And so we're trying to reel that back in to where we want to make sure that the county is properly compensated for the use of their equipment. Not only are these deputies getting paid, but we want the county to be able to recoup some of that revenue as well. We think that's
Event traffic management.
talking about anything that's extra duty aside from their regularly scheduled job, like church traffic, like any security job, that sort of thing. So that in and of itself will require just about a full-time person. So even though I'm calling it a recruiting position, it's really a multifaceted position within the organization to do some of these things that will make us more efficient.
Well, your answer brought another question.
Okay?
So you're asking for an FTO captain,
No, sir.
but he's already on board. So we ask for 2 officers.
Yeah, I've got an FTO lieutenant. I'm not asking for an FTO captain.
Okay, but answer begets it. He's here,
Yes.
but you're asking for one. You're asking for 2.
I'm not sure what you're looking at there.
Well, I thought that the way I got it was you were gonna add an FTO. So to make clear, I understand this, you have your FTO officer in place, so that's not one of your 9 new positions.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he's already in place.
Okay, that's what the confusion I had. I thought we were adding a new FTO, but you're not.
Yeah, I don't see that on my list. Beg pardon? Oh, the training director. Yeah, that's something, that's not an FTO coordinator.
Okay.
The training director is someone that will be at a higher level overseeing and managing the training of our organization. That will not be somebody that's out there actually doing the training, but someone that's actually doing all of the administrative stuff that it's a full-time job in and of itself, and the strategic planning and the analysis and all of the things to make sure that we're properly trained and everybody is getting the same level of training, and we're not, a little bit here, a little bit there, just making us more efficient across the organization.
Okay. And that's what you're talking about. That's one of the
That's
9.
probably what you're referring to, yes.
Okay.
The training captain.
Thanks. Madam Chair, before we take a vote, I'd like to open up back to you, and then we'll come back and see if we have any follow-up questions from HR.
Okay. Anybody on budget got any questions?
Just one quick question. Is these salaries based on the new market study that you have to clear? Is this just based on what you currently, the current pay scale?
I don't think so, and I'll defer to Claire or Phoebe on that, but I think this is taken off of a midpoint of the salaries in a position based on the rank that we currently have. So it's not the beginning, it's kind of at the midpoint.
The new market, Commissioner, would not impact, I don't think, our ability to hire competitively and with the amount of experience, since we're basing it off the midpoint. So we may indeed find someone that's below the midpoint, but the midpoint gives us the opportunity to make sure that we're being a fair and equitable employer that's attractive to experience and not just to individuals that are entering the market.
Thank you.
David, do you have any questions?
So Sheriff, I'm looking on your summary, just for Phoebe and myself. We got 181,000 in pocket change for 6 months worth of salary and benefits. Is that what I'm looking at here?
That's just one. That's just one.
Well, I understand,
The full.
but that 181 would be, that 181, 425, 46, is for one position. No,
You gotta look at the top of each position.
That's the total number of FTEs, if I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at, Mayor. And that's the benefits and taxes for 6 months. You want to come up, Jennifer, help with that? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, yes, sorry. The 181, 425 is 6 months of benefits and taxes for all 9 positions.
okay, good. So that's what I was asking. The second area, the 68, 625, that represents, other costs. You've got labels, uniforms, tires, ammunition, et cetera, correct?
That's correct.
And then the last set of numbers, the 935,000, that's a total one-time cost
Yes, sir.
that would go into that. So what we're looking at, I've got 2 follow-ups, if you don't mind, Madam Chairman. What's our time frame now to get vehicles?
Well, we haven't even ordered the vehicles that were approved prior to July. So we have that money approved, but we just received, I think, all the ones from last fiscal year. And we're fixing to place an order for those first 9 positions. And then we have the 31, 32, I think it was, for
Rodney?
It was 31.
31. Rodney, you want to come up and answer that? This is Captain Rodney King.
We have 31 replacement vehicles plus the 9 from before July, and then this 9 will add on to that if you approve this time.
You know, what the lead time is as a follow-up? What, if you place those orders for the ones you haven't yet, when will they be here?
They're telling us on the first group, I've ordered 12 just to get started on it. They're saying 6 to 8 weeks to have the cars. So you're looking at probably 2 months after that to have them upfitted. So you're looking at probably 4 months.
4 months to get the first
12.
To have them out. To have the first 12.
So we've got 30 to order. Are you planning to order all 30?
Absolutely, yes. As soon as I get the go ahead to get what we need from every division, we have a meeting next week for every division to kind of see what their needs are, because we have a lot of administrative vehicles and other specialty vehicles that's going out of date at this time, like detectives and stuff. So we have to get that, see what everybody needs to have a punch list of what to do, and then we can order. But I'm ready to order as soon as we get it. Last year, we started ordering vehicles at March. I think March was the first place to order we made, and we got all the cars out by October. That gives you a heads up. And that was 20, I think that was 19 cars, 20 cars total.
So this is a question, Madam Chairman, that can go to Phoebe. Is there a way, if we, because what we're looking at here is $1,582,000 taken out of fund balance. So theoretically, we double that. Because that's 6 months, but it's one-time cost of $935 is what I'm looking at here. So our doubling cost will be on the 181, or 181,425. That'll be a doubling of that cost for a full year's worth of salaries, correct?
Yes.
The others are one-time cost. In the original 30 plus 9 vehicles, I don't remember, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, did we put that in the capital budget for this year?
Yes, we did. The 30 we just concluded in our bond. So they received that money in November, or December is when we first actually got the cash. So that was for the 30 that they had asked for as part of their fleet management.
Is there any advantages in us holding off on this 6 vehicles until they get the 39 ordered?
I think that would depend on the timing of when these employees were hired.
Well, they don't have the vehicles now.
Correct.
If you're,
I think the 30 was
as I understand it, Mayor, all but 9 of the vehicles have been approved for purchase.
Correct.
Some of those have not even been ordered yet. He said we're meeting next week, and that's true. If you're asking us if we can wait to order that 9, absolutely we can. If you want to wait until after July, I mean, that's not a problem. If that,
Would that help?
is that better for the county, then we can certainly do that.
Well, not that I'm against it, because you gotta have vehicles, you gotta have all the ammo and all that stuff. But us approving, whatever that operational cost for the vehicle, just the vehicle, I'm not talking about, well, the tactical equipment, the rate, but that alone is, if you could wait until we hit the fiscal year, that still gives you 39 vehicles. 30 you're gonna replace and 9 for the others. You're not gonna get those in before July 1. I just can't imagine that.
We'll probably get half of that down before July.
Yeah, I think
We're fine with that.
Phoebe, can you hit your magic calculator there? Or Jennifer, one of you, that you ran to.
I don't have my calculator.
I'm not against them, but I don't want to spend money out of fund balance when we know we're not gonna use it, and that's rollover, and that helps us on our tax rate for the next year.
That would almost half the resolution. So that would bring the resolution down to 785,655.18. If we take out those 9 vehicles, 796, that would drop the resolution to 75.
I'm comfortable, yes, you're talking about just the vehicles, right? Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Because the other, the tactical equipment, the radios, all of that, you can get those, Roger, you can pretty well get those 30-day notice, can't you?
Yes.
It's just the vehicles that are taking so long.
That's correct.
Which is gonna throw us into 2026, 7.
Makes a lot of sense.
25, 26. So, Madam Chairman, I mean, that would be my suggestion to kind of save a little bit of money on this, because quite frankly, there's no way he's gonna spend that money.
Okay. Sheriff, I have some questions.
Okay.
I'll just tell you up front, I don't really believe in coming in mid-year asking for positions, because we usually do it once a year.
Right.
Kind of make everybody else abide by that. But, one thing, you've got a deputy chief, is that not, I don't know what Mark Elrod's position was?
Right.
What happened to his position?
It's one of the 4. So I'm proposing that we have 4 deputy chiefs instead of 1 chief deputy. Now, one of those will be designated as the number 2 or the undersheriff, but they'll all be the same rank. They'll all be within the same pay grade. 2 of those people are already in with, or within our organization now. Actually, they're all 4 within our organization in different positions. But it's about, again, span of control across the agency and leveling out those areas of accountability. And so, because 2 of them are already in positions that will basically become deputy chiefs, we're only needing one from a budget standpoint.
I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Why wouldn't you take his position and just change the title?
Because one of them, so four, so I've got one position, right? So I got four. So Mark's would be one.
Right.
Two of the people are being promoted from within. And then one, the last one is the one I don't have the budget funds for.
But you're asking the funds for all those positions and not just part of them too.
Well, I'm asking to create four positions, but I'm only asking to fund one of them. So in essence, two of the people, it's more or less gonna be a title change.
Well,
Because
that's
they're
what I
all-
understand, so
yeah.
why would you need this additional money for the title
Well,
change?
I'm only asking for money for one. One deputy chief, if you'll look there.
Yeah, but you're asking for one deputy chief, two captains, one lieutenant, and,
Those are lower level positions throughout the organization.
so you're saying you're gonna have two deputy chiefs?
No, I'm gonna have four.
In other words, you're gonna fill Elrod's position with somebody and asking these.
Yes.
And where you haven't been able to fill all your positions, isn't there money in your budget left over from salaries that it could be taken from your fund balance or transferred instead of asking for new position, new amounts? You see what I'm talking about, Phoebe?
Yes, ma'am. We actually have to budget based on the assumption that he will fill all those positions.
Okay.
So there is no extra. If you take those, if currently we were 100%, and he had no vacancies, that would completely wipe out his budget.
And then my other question is, and this goes into another matter, Thompson Station now is the only city that does not have a police department. How many deputies does it take to patrol Thompson Station? They pay us for one.
Are you talking about, are you asking how much they pay us? Is that what you're asking?
No,
What are you asking?
I'm asking, how many deputies do you usually have patrolling that area? I mean, have you talked to Thompson Station Mayor about
I have.
the possibility of them getting a police? I mean, that would free up a
I have.
lot of positions for the county that the county wouldn't have to pay for, and Thompson Station would pay
I think
for.
that's what they would like to do. I think they can fund it, yeah. I've had a meeting with the mayor within the last couple of months, and I've talked about increasing their fee that they pay us for the coverage in their area. I've asked to increase that by 100%. So doubling what they pay us now, going into this next fiscal year, and they're agreeable to that because they simply can't fund their own police department at this point, which that's an astronomical cost for places like Eagleville that have looked at it, and different agencies that, or different cities that don't have a police department but would like to have one.
Well, Eagleville just built a new police department and fire station, so they do have one funded. But I guess I'll look at it like this. It's hard for me to vote that we have to fund this because we don't want to raise taxes, but Thompson Station don't want to raise taxes either. It's kind of like we're getting the brunt of it.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, and whether they agree to pay us anything or not, we've got to provide the service. In absence of a police department, whether they give us a penny or they give us what they pay us, we've got to cover it just the same. We don't have the choice.
But you've had talks with them about that?
And they're amenable to it. They want to pay their fair share, whatever that is. And we talked about doubling what they paid us in the past this coming fiscal year.
I guess my concern, this is getting into another subject, is they continue to improve development, but they're not funding the services, and everybody else in the other cities are helping fund for them, which is another issue.
I understand.
Fair and equitable.
Fair and equitable. Yes, that's it.
All right, this really doesn't relate to you, but it does because you're in front of us. It relates more to how we're gonna fund government. And so, following up on the mayor's thing, I kind of calculate this in round numbers. I deal in round numbers. A full year of your request for salary, not including benefits, about $1.3 million. And so I'm thinking, I'm gonna ask Phoebe and maybe Rachel to help me out here. I'm thinking that From an HR standpoint, we gotta take care of everyone. And I just read a report this afternoon, the wage index, the last numbers were 4% nationwide. And so, that's the pressure we've got coming. And we've got a lot of uncertainty coming up in the next year. We're talking about the 25-26 end of the year and then 25-26 fiscal year. So, if we take this as a full year, that we're adding $1.3 million just in staffing cost to your group, then we can't continue to pay that out of fund balance, I don't think. And then we come up next year and let's say we decide to give, try to give our staff somewhat of a cost of living increase. So let's look at 2%. So Phoebe and Rachel, am I off bounds if I said a 1% would be 6 million? So a 2% would be 12 million cost? Am I in the ballpark?
1% for the county is a little under 1.8, so 1.787. And then schools, if that's approximately 4 million, Rachel? So yes, so if that's 4 million and I'm looking at approximately 1.8, if you round up, round 2 with these additional positions,
So
then
6
yes, they're
million
about 6 million.
percent, okay.
For
So
1%.
if we say we're gonna do 2%, that's 12 million. So what's the growth expected? Rachel won't know until May, I know. So what's our revenue growth expected? This may get a lot of deep, but what I'm trying to say is we get in a habit of my time here, we approve positions and then we forget we've got to pay for them. So I kind of want to run this around. Before we approve a position, have to lay somebody off. Let's make sure we got the money to pay them. So what do you think of revenue? If you list your figures that you usually use, revenue based on what we know now, historical basis, what would we?
Sure, growth percent, I'm anticipating about 4% over total revenue projection. So I think last year for county general was right at 3 or 4%. Currently, the only thing that we have hitting that number, again, numbers are extremely early, is sales tax. Everything else right now, we're not hitting 3 or 4%. And what I'm referring to is what we're collecting in business tax, wheel tax, those type of taxes. So far, we've not hit our 4%. But overall, usually the second half of the year is a little bit better, a little stronger. So I'm projecting about 4%. And no, sir, 4% will not give me 12 million.
So a 4% growth would not do 12 million. So here's a conundrum I've got, committee members. We're asking to add more staff. And our budget director is saying that to give existing staff even a 2% cost of living raise, that we would have to do something. And that something is, in my mind, tell me if I'm wrong, raise the property taxes are cut. And the reason I'm laying that out here for you is, it has nothing to do with what the sheriff was asking. It could have been Parks and Rec asking. It doesn't matter who's asking is. In the middle of the year, we approve this now. She paid out of fund balance, but come July 1st, we've got to pay it here on out. And these folks that are hired would expect some kind of pay raise, or they may say, well, I'm going to Rutherford County. You can't even give me a pay raise. You started me off good, then you didn't give me a pay raise. Or do we end up with the other staff members in different departments that we have to hold positions open, or we have to do layoffs to meet our budget? Because we've had a hard time passing any tax increases, even getting bonds approved. And we've got, a lot of this equipment is bonded, as we just heard from Captain King. You know, we've got patrol cars coming, we had to bond those. We couldn't pay for them, we had to bond them. So I have a real serious concern, not about the sheriff's request, but about how we're gonna fund it. And so here's my proposal. My proposal is to defer this to the budget committee and let them figure out in their budget for the 25-26 year, how we're gonna pay for this stuff. Because if we vote to approve these positions tonight, and the full commission approves it, we've locked in these 9 positions. We've got to figure out how to pay for them. And we can pay for them through the end of June. Our budget director said we use fund balance. How do we pay for them come July? Now, that's not the sheriff's problem, that's our problem. And so I'm hoping that we go through the budget process and we let the budget committee and the tax study committee and all the rest of us kind of figure out what are we gonna do. We just heard one proposal from the lady about another, possible tax, okay, that's on the table. But we need to figure out, in my mind, how we're gonna pay for stuff before we approve it, not after the fact. So my proposal here to the committee, and we'll take a vote on that after I hear some comments, is to defer this item to the budget committee and let them review it as they're going through the next year's budget. Otherwise, I sense that we're gonna have a crisis come May and June, trying to balance next year's budget. Anybody got any comments on that? Greg?
Yeah, I would agree to an extent, because we play games with fund balance every year, particularly on the school budget. And I've been saying that at some point it's gonna catch up to us. And I mean, this could be the year, I don't know, but you know, that's what the mayor was getting at, you know, that we use that fund balance, you know, we need that fund balance to be there to roll over to pay for stuff that we've already approved. So we do have, you know, and I've talked to other commissioners and some of you about the idea that it would be helpful if we had some type of decision-making support software that would help us plug in numbers and be able to project all this. I haven't found any that exist yet, but if anybody knows of any, that's something we might could look at as a commission, to have that kind of software would be very helpful, I think.
Well, we don't know what the legislature's gonna do, a new legislative body in there, so. Madam Chair, throw that to you before we take a vote.
Well, I kind of agree with Commissioner Webb. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. I'm just I have such a hard time doing this in the middle of the year where we don't know what next year is gonna look like. You know, we've got a huge amount to pay for the jail. That's kind of my priority now, is making sure we can pay for a new jail, so we don't have the pipes bursting and all these other issues. Anyone else have a comment?
I agree, but I kind of want to hear from the sheriff. If we defer this, what is the impact to you?
Well, you're putting the brakes on the plans that I have in place to move this organization forward now, based on my assessment at this point. And, you know, I totally understand what I'm hearing, but to that point, I would say I asked for the positions, and this was the solution I was given. So y'all put this on me, and I'm bringing it back to you. And, you know, I asked for them in June or May or whenever it was that we had the meeting, and I was told that this was the solution that I needed, or the course that I needed to take. It's not my preference, it's not my choice. It was a way to save the county money and still move forward, given that we hadn't added any positions, my understanding, since 2018, I believe it was. So, you know, I would have just as soon, had we been able to, and I don't know whether we could or not, without a property tax increase, added the positions when I requested them. But I was directed to come back at mid-year, so that's the comment that I would make.
It would have been a property tax increase.
Yes, so, I mean, that's, to the extent that, you know, we're pedaling as fast as we can, and, it's not gonna get any easier, so we're gonna do what we gotta do, but it's definitely going to, I mean, we're gonna have to hit the pause button and regroup if we're waiting until after July.
I guess my concern is that when it comes to just some of the reports and some of the incidents we've had in the county, I mean, I don't know how much more doubling Thompson Station is gonna bring in. They agree to that could offset some of this additional 600,000 plus for these positions. But in my mind, what your team does is a priority in the county, and I agree with you, Commissioner Webb. There's gonna be some challenges, I think, with this year's budget. But I think that I'd rather look for cost savings in other areas, whether it's through contract services or whether it's through, you know, going through the bidding process, doing RFPs, to look for those cost savings in some of our, you know, fixed costs. I don't feel like sacrificing what we need in the law enforcement side is really the right direction for what our county citizens are looking for as the role of government. So the deferral, whether we do or not, I don't know how quickly, obviously you've been able to hire fairly quickly. I just don't see this not being a priority for the budget. And, you know, if we have the fund balance now, I don't see why we couldn't go ahead and do this. And like you said, just start looking at how to save money in other places, or raising our revenue some way during the budget process. That's just my thought.
Phoebe or Rachel, what's 1% on the salary increase? 1% to each one of you. So we're at about, what, 53 million, 55 million?
So 1% for the county highway and landfill is a total of 1,787,000 and some change. So right under 1.8 million.
So if we do,
is 1%.
Mr. Webb has indicated 2%, that's not acceptable. We'll be right back in the same boat that we have been. The minimum that we draw the strings on this year should be 4%.
And that's what the economic nationwide
That's
is.
just what we spent a survey for. So this number out here too, whether it's for the sheriff or for the schools, anything less than 4%, we're right back in the same ballgame. But 1% represents approximately 1.5. So 4% would represent 4 million. What's 1% on your?
4.2.
So 16 million on yours. 4% represents 16 million on the salary, and
4.5 on
so
county.
somewhere around $20 million is what we've done. So I'm going to support the sheriff because at the budget committee, none of you were here. We did ask him to come back. Could he help us? He agreed to do that and come back in and ask for these other positions. And I'm going to be a man of my word. He's also agreed we could postpone these one-time costs for a few months until next year. That's getting into capital versus the labor cost. And Sheriff, I think Paul answered your question. If you hadn't done that last year, we would have had to do a property tax increase.
Understand.
And I think you were aware of that, all of us. And, Jason, the state did Jason in the last month or 5 weeks of the year. They slapped us with $3 million less, and here we are getting ready to go to print for the final budget. The state comes down and says, we're keeping over 3 million, 3.5?
2.5.
2.5, okay, I'm rounding up. $3 million, and so he had to cut deeper. We forgave, this commission forgave the lease that they would pay us back on that energy release, which means we lost $1.2 million because of what the state did to them to make their budget. So all of it, we try to all work together, but
And I wholeheartedly support that. I agree.
I know, I mean, those are things we do every single day. It would be great if they had a software program. I guess we could get one of the guys upstairs to try to work on one, but that's some heavy duty lifting to get that. But my position, Madam Chairman, I can support the sheriff on these 9 positions, provided he gets a little flexibility on the capital side, which he said he could understand. So you're just hiring, you're given the authorization to hire and come back in. Doesn't do away with what we've got to do, because we've got to budget and figure this thing out, but we have done it 20 some odd years and we'll do it again. But it's not fun to get into this.
We've had some folks that dug in, so they will not vote for a tax increase or a bond.
Absolutely.
And so this year may be the year.
See how strong that line is.
Well, and like all the other directors in the room, something that we're doing and will continue to do is we're trying to evaluate the money that we spend now across the organization in other areas and trying to utilize and leverage technology and making sure that we're that we're doing that reasonably and responsibly so that we can maybe keep our FTEs down and work smarter, not harder. And so we're looking at areas across our budget where we can save money. And that's an ongoing process that has come with the months that we've had to look at it, and we will continue to do that as we go into this next fiscal year. So hopefully we'll be able to find some savings in there ourselves.
Commissioner Torres has a question.
So Phoebe, this is probably for you. Do you have an idea of projected interest income this year in the budget?
Not for this year. Last year, when I spoke with the trustee, she was expecting a decrease down to about 85% of the prior year because rates were going down, so I did budget a little bit less. I do not anticipate it probably holding steady. I would say so far it's held steady. But she was projecting possibly an 85% increase over what we received last year.
Last year it was like 13 million?
Yes.
So 85%. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening. You got a question? I've got to let us take a vote if there's no other
Okay,
questions.
that's right, I got a question, I guess
Okay.
this is my concern. I see commissioners do a lot, and this is an example, they think, I'm gonna vote for that, but guess what? They don't wanna vote for a tax increase. You can't vote yes, I don't care whether it's the sheriff's department, it's Parks and Rec. If you vote for an amount like this, you are still voting for an increase. There's not some money tree out there that we're gonna keep finding money on. You know, it can't be everybody's asking, oh, what about this money? We've got a whole county that needs things. It can't always be just for one department. So I do want people to understand when they vote for this, there's a possibility you're voting for a tax increase, just like the jail. I mean, a lot of them didn't vote for the jail. What did they think we're gonna do with that old jail if you got a lot of people, but the jail's falling apart? So that is my comment, and back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee, for indulging me with my comments. I didn't see any support, but I will throw a motion out there that I would motion to defer this request so that the Budget Committee can review it in their annual budget process. Do I have a second? Hearing none, that motion fails, so the motion, Resolution 125-9 is back on the floor. It has a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote? Okay. And hearing the comments, you're okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously by the HR Committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the minutes, there is no, there was no motion to reduce and eliminate the capital part, right?
We approved as is.
Entire 1.5.
Because we're doing HR. We can go back and do that if legal feels like we should. I think that's a Budget Committee decision.
It would go to the floor with the Budget Committee recommendation. You having approved the full amount budget, I'm recommending an amendment.
That's the way I would understand it, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine to do it that way.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, our business is finished, and we may adjourn before you vote, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Is there any other business for the HR Committee tonight? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, is the Budget Committee, are we ready to vote, or do y'all have more questions or opinions?
Are we voting on the amendment to
Got it.
fix it?
We're
Mary,
voting on the resolution.
You want to amend that,
I'll make a motion to amend it.
and Phoebe's got the number, I think, there. She spouted out, whatever that is. We need to get that into the minutes.
I'll second.
The new total amount to reduce fund balance by $785,655.18.
Is that the new
That's the new amount.
Yes.
Yes. So the new total is $785,655.18.
Jennifer, does that match up?
Would be reducing.
We just take it out of the capital cost of the vehicles.
So 796,500 This is my new number, 785,655.18. Equals 182, 155.18.
So Phoebe, can you repeat that number, please?
The new number will be $785,655.18. That is completely eliminating the last line, your capital outlay of $796,500.
$786,655.18.
Okay, Mary's back to you.
So, make a motion to amend the total amount to $785,655.18.
A second.
Has anybody got any questions? Ready to vote on the amendment to $785,655.18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? The amendment passes 5-0.
Now you gotta go back to the main motion as well.
You only have 4 members.
Oh, that's right, 4, I'm sorry, that's right. Okay, we're going back to the resolution as amended. You want me to reread it, or?
No,
No.
you're amending it back to the
Okay.
main resolution.
Okay, any more questions? Are y'all ready to vote? Voting on the resolution with the new amount, $785,655.18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? No. So the original is 3, 4, and 1 no.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're gonna work on the budget transfers. Phoebe, you want to do that?
Yes, ma'am. The first resolution, or the first transfer, excuse me, is for the library department. And there is a request to move monies to reallocate funds for program supplies from utilities of $5,000 into other supplies and materials, $5,000.
Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0.
Second transfer, I'm on resolution tonight, is Animal Center is transferring $1,000 from custodial supplies, $1,500 from office supplies, transferring for a total of $2,500 to operating lease payments.
Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Next one, Phoebe.
Next transfer is from the Office of Public Safety. This is to transfer $50,000 from the operating lease payment line and moving that money into the maintenance and repair vehicle line. This is for some maintenance for a very large vehicle that has come up.
Can you get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Next one,
The
Phoebe.
next request is for a surplus truck request. We currently do have a waiting list for vehicles, but this is to put our community development department on the list for the next available truck, is when we have surplus, just for a available used vehicle.
Can I get a motion?
Second.
Does anybody have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Next.
Last transfer request is for our health department. This is a request for $155, moving funds from other charges into our liability insurance line item.
Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Okay, now we're for resolutions. Resolution number 125-1, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a grant contract with the Tennessee State Library and Archives on behalf of the Williamson County Library and appropriating amended the 2024-25 library budget by $10,393.
Second.
Phoebe, you want to speak on this?
Yes, ma'am. This is grant funds. This is their annual grant that they receive each year. This does have a matching of equal part, but they currently have those funds available in their operating budget. So there are no additional funds other than the grant.
Does anyone have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Resolution 125-2, resolution appropriating and amending the local health services grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Health and increasing the 2024-25 health department budget by $67,300 revenues to come from the state of Tennessee. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there Montgomery here?
She in here, yes, ma'am.
You're back there.
Yes, ma'am, this is,
Come to the podium.
Yes, Commissioner. This is additional dollars that the state of Tennessee is giving us for our cost reimbursement employee contract to cover that additional 2% salary increase that the county approved.
Does anybody have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Resolution 125-3, resolution accepting donation and appropriating and amending the 2024-2025 Animal Center budget by $9,625.77, revenues to come from donations. Motion.
Second.
Andre, would you like to speak on this, please?
This was a grant from Nation to reimburse us for expenses related to helping Unicoi County with their cats after the Hurricane Helene. And then also a Rotary grant to offset the cost of senior animals, helping to make them more adoptable. And then a gift from a family to buy honorary items to put around the shelter. They sponsored a bench and some trees and things.
Does anybody have any questions? Andre, I do want to say thank you to Animal Control. I've been meaning to do that for taking in some of the cats from the hurricane and things.
No, we were, Todd Horton was there deployed with public safety helping, and he called me and was telling me how bad things were and that they could really use some help. Their shelter there was completely underwater, and their employees literally swam in to rescue animals from their shelter. So we were happy we could help. It was just cats, but as Dr. Baden would say, it's just a cat.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Has anybody got any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Resolution 125-4, resolution appropriating and amending the 2024-25 Parks and Recreation budget by $138,000, revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Gordon Hampton, would you like to speak on this?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What this is for, excuse me, if you're not familiar with it or have never been at College Grove Recreation Center, the original library, and Commissioner Herbert might be able to help me with the age of this thing, is still being used quite regularly by the Parks and Recreation Department. You can see in the body in the next to last whereas that the program itself is generating good significant revenue. But in order for us to continue to use the theater there, we are going to have to replace those seats. We've already started taking seats out, and it's starting to resemble some bad dental work in there because you look around and the seats have been taken out, so there are a lot of gaps throughout the theater, and because they're unsafe to sit in. So what we're asking is for us to be able to order new seats and start with just the renovation of the seating space. Because like I said, we are using this facility quite extensively, not only for our own programs, but also for rentals.
Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Smith?
Just a comment. So yeah, my church has been meeting there. They just moved recently, so I would agree that it's time to upgrade the seats. I snagged enough clothes on some of those seats that I would say that I do agree. Does the 138, does that cover the entire cost, or will there be additional cost?
No, that should get it. We've got this already priced out and we've got the quotes. So we had to get more than one quote because of the amount, and we feel like we can do it for this. Yes.
Great news. And is there going to be the same amount of seating, or is it going to be less? Or more?
No, it'll be the same.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions?
Got one. This is for legal with Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Sorry,
If,
reading something else.
I know you are. So if we've had a commissioner acknowledge she goes to church there, should she declare a conflict of interest?
It would be indirect at most. She can vote her conscience as long as she acknowledges the indirect conflict.
So would you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, you have to say
Okay,
that so we can get it into the minutes.
As someone who sat there just recently, I will vote my conscience.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, is everyone ready to vote, or have they got any more questions? Everybody in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Anybody against, passes 4-0. Resolution 125-5, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and appropriating and amending the 2024-25 Parks and Rec budget by $75,000, revenues to come from grant funds. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I guess here comes again, Gordon.
So this is a good grant here. This is $75,000 to do brownfield studies. And what a brownfield investigation is basically TDEC has authorized us to go in and hire someone to come in and look for any type of ground disturbance. They look for everything from hazardous materials in the ground, water saturation, and everything like that. Once the study is done, if it determines that there are damages, then it will provide a report so that then we can turn back around and reapply to TDEC to help cover the mitigation costs to get these properties in some usable conditions. The really urgent one for us is Gregory Park, because that is a facility that we use for active youth sports. Bending Chestnut is just to prepare that for use down the road, but Gregory Park is immediate concerns.
I guess I have to ask, where is Gregory Park? I don't remember hearing about it.
It's in Nolensville. It's in the industrial part, the industrial corridor there in Nolensville, right next to the Church of Christ, right by the Mill Creek.
Maybe y'all just give it a different name now than it used to be.
Probably need to do something.
Has anybody got any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against, passes 4-0. Resolution 125-6, resolution appropriating and amending the 2024-25 Parks and Rec budget by $179,964.49, revenues to come from donations. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Get my exercise, aerobic. So this is money that is coming in from different user groups. $144,000 has been collected by our recreation associations. That's going to offset some expenses. The donations for some of the sheds that we're using, so that the people that use our parks that are under our umbrella can properly store things, which makes it a lot easier for us. We don't buy those, so they pay for them themselves. Once they pay for them, they become our property, and we insure those and maintain them going forward. Also in programming, you can see where they went out and tried to secure donations and sponsorships. And then the Williamson County Community Chorus, which is one of our outstanding programs. We've challenged them to help offset some of the expenses, and they went out on their own and raised $11,031 to cover some of the costs that is incurred for us to provide that program. And all those donations add up to almost $180,000, $179,964. So we'd like your permission to be able to put that into operating.
Does anyone have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against passes 4-0. Resolution 125-7, resolution accepting donations on behalf of the Veterans Treatment Court and appropriating and amending the 2024-25 Williamson County General Sessions Court budget by $4,103 revenues to come from donations. Could I get a motion?
Motion.
Phoebe, you want to explain this one?
Yes, these are just donations that have come into the Veterans Treatment Court to be used just for those individuals that are enrolled in the treatment court program. And this is just to pay those additional expenses to put the money in and back out.
Has anybody got any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Resolution 125-8, resolution accepting a donation of $3,000 for the purchase of equipment and supplies for the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and appropriating and amending the 2024-2025 Williamson County Sheriff's Office budget by $3,000, revenues to come from donations.
Motion.
Second.
Sheriff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a donation from an individual here in the county that has apparently done this for several years. And unbeknownst to me, but he came back this year and brought us a $3,000 check, and we just want to push that through the commission so that we can utilize that money in our budget.
Don't go away, Sheriff. Phoebe, talk to me a little bit about what number we're putting in other charges as opposed to what the directions are that has to be used for law enforcement equipment supplies. Is that a different number?
Yes, law enforcement equipment is a different number. So we would know what the sheriff is expecting to use these for.
So Sheriff, I mean, there's no problem with, we need it going into the correct, I mean, that line is under other charges.
Okay.
And whatever the donations are, we have to use it for that.
Okay.
So whatever that number is, I don't know if Phoebe knows that 17, you pulled it out already?
Yes, sir. The law enforcement equipment line item is 101-54110, 571600, and then all the rest of the zeros.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Jennifer to come back up.
Mr. Mayor, so the purchase items that we were planning on using this for was for deputy employee acknowledgement and encouragement awards. It's not technically law enforcement equipment. We were looking at it as from more of the supply end versus law enforcement equipment.
But in your second whereas, it says it's to be used for the purchase of law enforcement equipment supplies and other law enforcement purposes.
If we need to change that, the wording in that to where it can be used for, we just need to, I mean, however
We need a different whereas.
Well, we just need to determine exactly what the intentions of the donor, because those have to be used
Does he know
exactly
what it's
for
gonna
the
be used
intentions of
for?
the donor.
He has no requirement other than just donating it on behalf of the sheriff's
He's
office.
never asked us to use it in a specific way or for
Right.
specific things.
So I was,
it was left to our discretion.
okay, I would suggest you go into the second whereas and get that verbiage changed to meet that long 15 number that you've got there. Madam Chairman, I will, I can support this, but they need to have this corrected before it goes to the county commission Monday night and get that amendment on the floor.
Yeah, we need it on the floor here.
But I'm gonna make the amendment, but I
Okay,
just
you're gonna
don't,
make the amendment.
I'll make
okay.
the amendment to correct the whereas, and then with all of us here understanding, you're gonna get that correct verbiage if these two If I can get a second on that to vote on the amendment.
It will need to match also in the language of the now therefore be it resolved also mentions for
Correct.
law enforcement equipment, so that will need to parallel the recital in.
Yeah, this boilerplate one didn't match that one in the verbiage. So you need a second.
Second.
Does everybody understand? They'll get it corrected, but just put it in the right line because you can't use it for anything if you don't.
Right. Madam, when we send the votes to the clerk for him to have it out tomorrow, he will need to put the amendment on the resolution that you all voted to amend it. So I'll get with Jennifer with you all's permission on exactly how to say that. Okay. Talk to them.
Can we vote on the amendment?
To be correct.
To be corrected. Has everybody got any questions before we vote? Everybody's in agreement, vote aye, please.
Aye.
Anybody against? Okay. The vote to change the wording, amendment to change the wording passed 4-0. Now back to the main resolution.
As amended.
As amended. Does anybody have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Next one, resolution 125-9, resolution appropriating and amending the 2024-2025. Oh,
I did that.
oh, that one, I'm.
You want to vote? You want to
We'll
vote on
vote on
it
that
again?
again.
All right, no, I do not want to vote on that one again. Okay, resolution 125-10, resolution appropriating and amending the 2024-25 sheriff office budget by $4,500 revenues to come from opioid abatement funds. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Phoebe or Jeff.
Phoebe.
And then, while you've got it, go ahead and talk about the next one, so you get it all in one breath.
If you all will recall, November, I think we awarded opioid abatement funds. We were asking for some additional information from 3 of our entities that had requested and submitted application. A part of that was we also found that we can provide some training using those funds for the sheriff's department. So we are asking now to utilize and pull those funds that we have received in opioid abatement funds and $4,500 for the use for the sheriff for some training purposes. And the second one, obviously, the resolution is for the 3 organizations that we had requested additional information. And the task force has approved unanimously both of these resolutions.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just have an observation, that's okay? The Resolve Diagnostics, I know this is the second time they've come up. I believe the first time that they came up for distribution, it was 200,000 that we awarded them. What?
That's the next resolution. You
Are
want to
we
say
talking
that?
about both those? Are we talking about both of them right now?
Both of them aren't on the floor. She was explaining
okay.
both, so we'll get to it in
I'll
just a
wait.
second.
I'll wait.
Has anybody got any more questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Now we're on to resolution 125-11. Resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute agreements with certain organizations providing opioid remediation and abatement services and appropriating funds for those services. Appropriations to come from opioid abatement funds. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Smith, if you want to.
Yeah, again, the Resolve Diagnostics, I know we did a fairly significant distribution to them. I guess, I just want to understand, the settlement money seems like for the most part, it's going to organizations that are helping people recover, rehabilitate, and the training. And Resolve Diagnostics, from my understanding, is a testing company. So I guess I'm just curious as to, these are, I don't know what the total amount is to date that we've dispersed, but it seems like with this one, it'd be $355,000 for one organization. I guess I'm just trying to understand in the long list of all the applicants, how this one is kind of falling higher in the amount that they're getting from the settlement money.
Kathy's still here.
Well, I can try to answer some of it. I can't answer that. We're using a third-party vendor through Middle Tennessee State University that vets all of these things and brings them back to the opioid task force committee. You made reference that they had asked for money, but they didn't document it, and so they had to be postponed until this time. They are actually doing that testing behind this building for a juvenile, I don't know if the sheriff's using them or not yet. Y'all?
We haven't used them yet, no, sir.
Juvenile,
Probation, 21st Recovery Court, DUI Court. What am I missing?
but they're actually doing those testing, blood draws, if you might use, for them. And in turn, they are renting from us the space which is used out back. They write us a check to be able to use those, which is convenience for that. But as far as the amount of money, that has been vetted, and I could get you that answer, but I can't get it to you now.
Yeah, I guess that's just kind of, I'm familiar with Refuge Center. I'm not super familiar with Educare, but it just seems like this one stands out as to how the testing is really helping to, I guess, the purpose of the funds, how that directly helps these individuals with their addictions or their recovery. So, I mean, I agree with the Educare, and go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, one of the express uses allowed under the national settlement is support for the treatment program. So in testing for some of these programs, this allows them as part of the treatment program, the accountability portion, part of it is support, is the testing for those individuals as they go through those programs. This offsets some of the costs that they would not otherwise be able to pay. So this allows a higher level of testing, and I don't know the name of the testing because it's considered the gold standard testing. Spectrometry, I believe, is the technology that they use. This allows to offset some of that cost.
So in essence, then, is it saving us money?
It is
By
saving
them?
the participants some money, yes.
You do understand, we have no tax dollars in there.
Yeah, no, this money is all coming in. I just was curious as to
It saves
why
either the
other,
participant or the program monies. In fact, we back these numbers down to avoid any double dipping with juvenile or probation. These numbers were reduced. That's one of the reasons why it's a late number, is because we had to offset some of those numbers.
is there a way to get kind of the list of all the applicants for this? Okay.
Sure.
I would be interested in that. Okay, you've explained. Thank you.
Because most of those participants do not have the ability to pay for this testing, and that makes another hardship on them.
Okay.
Is everybody ready to vote then? All those in favor say aye. Anybody against? Passes 4-0. Next, resolution 12512, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to initiate a request for proposals from qualified organizations and to contract for the provision of a study to determine the effects of increasing the adequate facilities tax may have on the education impact fee rate, revenues to come from unappropriated county general fund balance. Can I get a motion for that?
Motion.
I guess this came from Chris Richards. Do you want to explain this?
Yeah, sounds like it's well timed considering that we're struggling with income for the sheriff's department. This is just to look at the adequate facilities tax, which is currently taxed at 34 cents per square foot in the unincorporated areas of Williamson County. Excuse me, we're looking at taxing the entire county and at a state maximum rate of $2. We have to do a study to look at the effects of that would have on the educational impact fee. We might need to adjust the rate of the educational impact fee. So the cost of the study is $50,000. The potential income would be determined by the study, but I've had some constituents run some numbers, and it would probably be about around $5 million a year, which would be very well timed right now to be paying for the sheriff's department. So I welcome any questions. I'm not sure how in depth I can get about answering this.
Yeah, Commissioner, in your third the third whereas, we currently do not charge an adequate facility tax on non-residential development. Is that correct?
I had legal draft this, so I deferred to them.
The non-residential is 34 cents.
It is $2 on residential.
It's $2 on residential, 34 cents on non-residential, and all of that is outside the incorporated areas currently.
So is this a way you think that you would raise taxes on businesses or anyone? What's the objective of this? To find more revenue? Is that what it is?
Find more revenue.
On that, as a follow-up, how are you going to do that? Give me, there's something here I'm missing. If you're not going to, it seems to me you're raising taxes.
On businesses, yeah.
On business.
It's just, it's impact.
Well, it's
Okay, it's an impact fee on businesses inside the city and outside the city.
correct. Well, the entire county.
Well, I understand that. So you're, in essence, looking at a fee to start charging our businesses inside the city that we would see the funds for those. Is that correct?
I think as you stated it, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If I could, this is on new construction, both inside and out, so it would not be on existing structures. And this would have to be offset on the educational impact fee side. That's the nature of the study, because the educational impact fee calculates other taxes paid
Right.
on the residential side on the impact. So there's already an offset. This would increase taxes paid by businesses, so we'd have to see how that impacted, no pun intended, on the impact fee that you were
So
charging.
it's not an automatic legal opinion. It's not an automatic. If you charge more, you've still got to offset it on the other side.
You would have to, whether that's a dollar for dollar, I don't know.
I get that.
So I guess basically you're charging business more and residential less? I mean, it's gonna, I mean, you gotta give them consideration for the
The
residential.
adequate impact fee is only on residential. So to the degree it was offset, it would be moving it from residential to commercial. It's just to whatever that dollar amount was. And the idea when the privilege tax, which is what this is studying, was introduced, the idea was the impact was caused more by residential growth than by the commercial. It was by rooftops, not by commercial rooftops. Whether that's true or not, I'm not saying yes or no to, but that was the concept as to why you have $2 on residential and 34 on commercial or non-residential.
Just to touch on that as a follow-up, when this was put in, that was our theory that the rooftops were driving and the business were already paying. I realize it's a fee, and that is different from taxes.
Well, this is a tax, the other is a fee, but yes.
I understand. It's a roundabout way to get more revenue from our commercial people.
By commercial development, yes.
But am I looking at wrong? You get more money from the commercial, but you're gonna decrease what you get from the education impact fee from the individuals?
I
mean,
don't know that it'll be dollar for dollar, but you have to study what that impact is.
That's what he's asking.
And that's what he's asking to be studied. But theoretically, yes.
Because I think our education impact fee is probably gonna go down next time since we haven't built as many schools. Because there's such a formula for that, am I not correct?
It's really based on the growth of your.
It can only be used
rooftops.
for growth projects.
Only for
Yeah.
growth. And even though we don't have the numbers, the houses square foot are growing. That makes sense. Whereas the average might have been 4,000 or 5,000, we're seeing some homes come in at 6,000 to 8,000 square feet and bigger.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of this just to understand, you know, what the numbers look like, because it looks like we have a lot of questions around just what is the net impact here, and is there potential to bring in more revenue? So I would support, you know, doing the study, because $50,000, the ROI might be significant. I guess the question I have is if the study comes back and it says, hey, there's significant amount of revenue that we could generate, what does that process look like? Is that something that we'd have to wait until we do the next educational impact fee assessment? I think we do every 4 years, or would that be something we could, by resolution, go ahead and?
You could adjust the rate of the privilege tax, but you would have to adjust the impact fee to the amount that it impacts it, because this is a broader use than the educational impact fee, which can only be used for education for growth. This has growth, but it also includes other pennies for other areas of the budget. So it may give you more flexibility in the use of that dollar than the educational impact fee does. But again, there's no way to quantify that without the study.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, I would support this because I think there are other areas of the county that we are hurting law enforcement. You know, Gordon's got a list of Parks and Rec and Highway too, so I imagine it can be used for any of those. So, yeah, I would support this.
If I may, a lot of what I was looking at was the undeveloped areas along Interstate 840, thinking that will look a lot like Atlanta in 30 years, and that's potential commercial development that can be taxed and help us pay for new schools.
Or roads, or library, or Parks and Rec, or deputies.
I guess, and then my other question is 50,000, where'd you get that amount from?
I contacted the consulting company, I was given the name by legal, and I just spoke to them and they gave me a round number, $50,000.
Carson Bice is who did the study for the educational impact fee and would be the type of entity you would be looking for, because they did this kind of analysis when they gave us the impact fee numbers.
I know they were extremely good.
Excuse me?
I said they were extremely good, trying to make it sure that we couldn't get in a lawsuit over determining the amount.
And they testified on our behalf in the lawsuit the home builders brought. So yes, they're very familiar with this concept.
Yeah, when I called him, he knew exactly what I was talking about.
Do you have any more questions, maybe? Anybody got any more questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Anybody against?
No.
3 yes, 1 no. Did you need to leave one?
I've got it.
Resolution 12513, Connor Scott, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Military Tennessee Emergency Management Agency and appropriating and amending the Office of Public Safety 2024-25 budget by $32,286.15. Revenues to come from Homeland Security Urban Area Security Initiative grant funds. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Connor, would you like to?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, thank you. So this is a federal grant that we are going to be a sub-grantee to state on, and it's for our Urban Area Security Initiative, UASI, UASI, you see there, which is our regional partnership with other counties around the Nashville metro area. And this specific line of funding is going to be used for an EMS UTV off-road vehicle with patient care capabilities that's going to replace an aging vehicle. We'll primarily be using it at special events like downtown Franklin, where it's easier to get around large crowds with a small vehicle, but can also be used at emergency scenes where we need to go areas off-road to get to a patient.
Does anyone have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Resolution 125-14, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a grant contract with the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and amending the 2024-25 Sheriff's Office budget by $10,692. Can I get a motion? Motion. Second. I guess this would be the sheriff, please. Or someone else want to speak on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a 50-50 split grant between us and the Franklin Police Department, and we've identified funds that we plan to use our portion with, and I'm gonna let Chad Euchre, Captain over the jail, talk about that.
How y'all doing? So our portion of the jail is going to be used to monitorize the way in which we do the paperwork inside the facility. Right now, the reporting process is we have to print out paper, sign it, and then scan it back in. And you know, if corrections are found that need to be made, we have to then reprint new reports, so on and so forth. This will give us the ability to sign off on those reports digitally, so they don't ever have to print it off. Same thing with booking new intakes. Right now, we have to ask them a bunch of questions, print off the original copy, have them sign it, either get scanned back in or put into their paper file. This way, we could just have them, we'll read them a digital copy and they can sign off on it digitally saying that. So we're just going to use our portion of the funds to buy digital signature pads for all the computers in the jail.
And this can be used in the new jail?
Yeah.
Okay. Has anybody got any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Resolution 125-15, resolution amending the 5-year capital improvement program for schools, roads, fire protection, and recreation. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Since this has got different departments, basically this is a planning tool. It's a requirement for the privilege tax. Does anybody have any questions? Remember, this is just planning. This doesn't mean this is what they get. So does anybody have any questions about any departments?
Madam Chair, I did have some questions. I did go through this pretty thoroughly, and I understand this is just a tool and we still actually have to vote on, but I guess is this kind of the format, like every county has to go through this capital improvements 5-year plan, and it's just kind of checking the boxes?
If you had an adequate facilities tax, yes.
Okay, because I did feel like there's some, one of the things I think that are missing is, like we talked about earlier, is like, especially when you look at this next year coming up, which tends to kind of be those bonds that are going to come to us. It was like 93 million is what I saw across all the departments, including the schools. And the question I have is, how are we going to pay for this? What is this going to do to our interest? Is this what we should expect to see in our intent to funds? And if there's any way that we can improve the information that comes to us, there's improvement plan, so we can really use this as a tool, a strategic tool on not just here's what's being requested, but somebody's done the work on how we're possibly going to fund it and what's going to need to be bonded versus what can be used from fund balance versus what's already in the budget for some of these capital requests. Is that something we can look into doing to kind of?
We do usually during the budget process when we start, when the departments come to us and say, okay, these are the projects from my CIP that I'd like to go forward with and request. At that time, I usually present a spreadsheet that says this is how much we are anticipating using from fund balance. This is how much we have available of this for privilege tax, and then the rest will have to be bonded. So that will come to you later when these individuals start actually asking as hard numbers. Right now, again, this is just a preliminary for what they're anticipating. There is a column, I'm not sure if it was utilized. I think on what you saw was just the priority and the rank, I think specifically. At this point, it does not determined how they will be funded. But everything that is currently on these capital requests, there is nothing in operations. These are all brand-new projects. There is nothing on these numbers that are currently in the numbers. So you have three choices. This will either be from fund balance, if we have the funds available, privilege tax, based on what we have at the time and how we anticipate ending the year, and incentive fund. Those are our only three options.
Yeah, I guess I'm just really hesitant. I understand it's just a tool, but I'm just hesitant to approve just because there are some things that I saw in there that I'm like, I guess when it comes to the priorities and how we kind of put everything together and how we kind of go about this decision process that I'm really struggling with as far as, you know, what can we really do from Parks and Rec this year versus what do we need to prioritize? And I know you've been through this many times.
I look at it as a wish list, because every one of them would love to have this, but then the reality hits, this is how much money you get, and then they narrow it down.
So Commissioner, if I may, this goes through multiple cuts. So this comes through, as Commissioner Herbert said, as a wish list. We sit down with the departments individually when we look at their operating, and the mayor, myself, we look at those numbers and say, okay, now really, what can you push out to next year? What is really going to go online this year based on construction and such? What do we have funding available? So then the mayor will make a recommendation to cut usually about half of what's on the wish list, I guess. And then we will come to you and I will present that and say, this is all the money that we have. And then you at that time, last budget committee, then cut additional from that number. So you will have multiple opportunities to see this between now and June 30.
Okay, because I know last year I voted no on the educational, 5-year capital plan. And I saw some improvements there too, so I do appreciate the work. So I don't want to say I don't appreciate the work that all the departments do in putting together these requests, but I guess when the time comes, then we'll have to figure out what we can and can't do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it's not set in stone. I mean,
yeah.
And I guess they would love to have these things, but they may have to put what's the priority for them when they come before us. What is the most important for them?
Yeah.
That could kind of change as the year goes on.
Well, I guess it's just, we look at our debt continuing to kind of go up, and then we're looking at, I don't know, Phoebe, correct me, it's maybe close to 120 million in debt service this coming year, based on what you had given us previously. When you look at that, that cuts into our operational budget, and that, eliminates our ability to pay the raises and pay the folks that we need to. That looking at our capital projects seems to be a really good area to figure out, how do we kind of put some boundaries on how much debt we're willing to take on and how much we're willing to see our debt service go up and then impact the other areas of the budget. So I am very interested to see the process play out and understand.
That will come at the end. This is just kind of, like I said, the wish list. Has anybody else got any questions? David, you're on the fly tonight. Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Resolution 125-17, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Murray County Emergency Communications District and the Williamson Emergency Communications District. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Christie, would you like to come and speak on this?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is simply a re-interlocal, as you would say. Several years ago, we consolidated with Spring Hill. When we did that, we needed to receive those 911 calls, even on the Murray County side, directly to our center. We entered into an interlocal at that point to receive those calls directly to our center instead of the transfer method, which would mean they would have to take the call and then transfer them to us, Second Save Lives. So this is just a re-up of that interlocal to make sure that we continue to receive those 911 calls into our center on the Murray County side.
Does anyone have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Resolution 125-18, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Murray County Emergency Communication Districts and the Williamson County Emergency Communications District for the temporary transfer of 911 calls. Christie again.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we consolidated with Spring Hill was Murray County's backup 911 center for the purpose of the 911 calls. All 911 centers must have a backup that is an automatically staffed 24/7 backup. And so we took over being Murray County's when we took on Spring Hill. This interlocal was never put in place, and it's just setting it in stone that we will take those calls in the event of a disaster that happens that Murray County needs the phone calls to transfer to us. We do not reciprocate in this. We are not sending our calls to them. Right now, we do a combination of sending those calls to, they would live go to Brentwood, and then we would come here. We have a backup center downstairs that we would start taking calls from.
Who did the motion on that? Let me get a motion. Let me get a motion, please. Rich, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your staffing? How is it at the 911 center as far, do you have many vacancies?
We have 5 right now.
Do you have a difficult time getting those positions filled?
We have a difficult time with retention. It was at one point a difficult time recruiting and retention. But just like the sheriff's office, we're doing better in our retention efforts. It's a difficult job, and not everyone can do it. So we do struggle with keeping staff. We're struggling right now a little bit with our compression with supervisor positions and liability. So we do have a supervisor position, a couple supervisor positions open right now.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody have any questions for her? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Resolution 12519, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a real estate sale and purchase agreement to purchase real property on Ferndale Road. Can I get a motion? Motion. Connor?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So we're working on several things in public safety to improve fire and EMS response across the county and maximize our resources. And this is one of those initiatives in partnership with the city of Fairview. So as Fairview is growing, we in the city have identified the need for a second full-time EMS unit based out of the city. Right now there's one. We just stood up a 12-hour, essentially daytime unit in Fairview to start meeting the call volume needs. So at the same time, the city of Fairview is working on building a second fire station that would be pretty close to where our volunteer station is, up Highway 96. They'll be near Northwest Highway, right on that corner there, where we are a little bit further north towards Crow Cut Road. And the idea that we've developed with them, knowing for us that the Ferndale area outside of Fairview, sort of to the south and east, has been a coverage hole for us, is that the city of Fairview is interested in standing up a second engine company while they build their new station, where our volunteer station for the rescue squad is now. So our plan is for them to move an engine company there and for us to move another full-time EMS unit there. So we'll have a second EMS unit in the city, and then they would cover that area. And if this property works out, we will be covering the south end of the Ferndale area, which for a long time has been an underserved area in terms of fire response for the county. So this property is a little over 3 acres. It has an existing barn on it that we actually believe we can retrofit to pour concrete floor, put in bay doors, and actually build into a fire station. So this will be a really key piece in covering that area and working with Fairview. The things that we look at are municipal plans, urban growth boundaries, to figure out where will the towns, the cities be moving in relation to where we need to think about future station planning. So as Fairview begins to grow and annex up that 96 corridor, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to invest in a station on that side, but out towards Ferndale, where they don't have growth plans. That area has been a priority and will continue to be. So in partnership with them, we think that this will be a great solution for everyone.
Will that affect the ISO ratings for the residents out there, improve their insurance rates?
It will. So many residents along that Old Harding Road corridor all throughout Ferndale are essentially, they're considered not covered because they're outside of 5 road miles of a fire station. So this would cover the Ferndale area, not all the way up to, if you think about going north on Old Harding, not all the way up to 96, but almost up there. And then further down the south end as you get down Old Highway 96, past Ferndale. So there would be, it's not a heavily populated area, but definitely some residents in that area who would go from having, from the insurance perspective, no fire protection to being in an ISO class 5. So we would anticipate seeing some pretty big benefits from that in terms of insurance rates.
So anybody got any questions?
I guess the only question I have is the 380, is that about market rate for an acre now in that area?
It is, we looked, the comparison we looked at was a 1 acre parcel across the street that sold for 100,000. And that one doesn't have any property improvements on it, doesn't have a barn or anything, it's just straight land. So that was one of the comparisons that we looked at. And then there were some others, but that is pretty much the growing rate at this point. Yeah.
I think I paid less than for my house out there on an acre in Fairview when I first moved.
Wait till the appraisals come in. You'll see how valuable this land is in Williamson County. Is everybody ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Resolution 12520, resolution authorizing the conveyance and trade of two-way radios owned by the Williamson County to the town of Nolensville for a 2022 mobile home. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Would you like to do this again?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So as part of this move, we have identified that the town of Nolensville is surplusing a double-wide trailer that they've been using, or they had been using at the old fire station before they moved into their new fire station. And just so happens they had been borrowing about $50,000 worth of radios from us that they've let us know they are interested in keeping. The mobile home's value is about $70,000. So we worked together with Nolensville to come up with a deal to potentially trade the radios for the trailer. That trailer would be moved to our existing rescue squad location in Fairview, where we have a single wide trailer. That will allow for enough space for the full-time engine crew and for the full-time EMS crew. Then we could take the single wide trailer that's currently in Fairview and move it either to this new Fernville property or Station 30 in Prim Springs, one of the two, depending on soil. Soil and septic is always a limiting factor in any area when we're looking to have firefighters and EMS crews.
See, anybody got any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? It's 3-4-0 against. All right, resolution 12522, resolution approving a new peer support specialist position for the Williamson County Veterans Treatment Corps. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Phoebe, you want to speak on this? I don't see Judge Taylor here, or Tracy.
I don't think Tracy's on the
Okay.
program. Yes, this is for Veterans Treatment Court Peer Support Specialist. This is going to be used funds from their grant. So we, in November, approved the actual receipt of the grant and the grant contract. At the time, we were not aware that it also allowed us to hire and fund a position. So this is just for us to be able, for you to allow us to move forward with hiring that position. It is fully funded through grant funds. If the grant funds are not to be awarded in the next year, the position also terminates.
Does anybody have any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Resolution 12523, resolution authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a sublease agreement with Franklin Webb Printing Company for the lease of office space for the sheriff's office. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Sheriff.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this was an opportunity that presented itself to us here recently when we learned that the district attorney's office is vacating this office building on Beasley Drive and relocating to the old service merchandise building over behind Best Buy. So this is obviously in close proximity to our sheriff's office there, and it was formerly occupied by the 21st Judicial Drug Task Force and most recently by the district attorney's office. And at a cost of $2,500 a month plus utilities, this is a little less than $1 a square foot, and we felt like it was a good opportunity to look at relocating our narcotics unit from the courthouse where they're currently at to this facility, and we propose at least at the onset to pay for this with money from drug funds, which is permissible according to CTAS. And so it would give us additional office space, and as y'all are aware, with the approval of the money for the jail and the Juvenile Justice Center, the sheriff's office was actually pulled out of that for now. So we have nothing currently in the plans for replacing our office space, and this would give us an opportunity to grab that lease space in close proximity to where we're at, and at what we feel like is a very reasonable price.
Has anyone got any questions? Commissioner Smith, did you have any?
No, I got a chance to talk to the sheriff prior to tonight's meeting, so he answered the questions I had regarding.
Is this a one-year lease?
No, I think it's a multi-year, right?
5 years.
It's a 5-year lease.
I guess my concern is when you build the jail, will this be necessary? Can you do
Well,
a
this
shorter
would,
lease?
these offices that we're proposing to use this space for would not be included in the jail. That would not, it would be part of the sheriff's office, and right now we have nothing in the works to replace the sheriff's office, as I understand it.
So in the new plans, it's not the sheriff, they don't have the office in it at all?
No. That money that was approved by the commission only was for the jail and the Juvenile Justice Center. It did not include the amount of the money that was projected to build the sheriff's offices.
That brings up a thought though. Does the plan still require us to, I guess, tear down the current juvenile center?
That was my understanding. We're all under one roof, and the original plan, as it was explained to me, was that that existing jail and the SO would become a parking lot at some point, and the sheriff's offices would be built closer to Century Court, the road itself. So they would move closer toward the road, and then the parking lot would be behind it. But again, that money was not, that was that original, I think 325 comes to mind, and the money that was approved was 280.
To Commissioner Herbert's point though, would it be possible to shorten the lease, to not have to do 5 years and see where we're at a year from now, to see if there's potential
I don't see,
space someplace
I don't see
else?
why not. Yeah, I mean, we're fine with that. I mean, that was just trying to lock in a price for 5 years because it seemed very reasonable, and they were willing to, the tenant was willing to do that. But if we feel like, and you know, it seems reasonable to think that something's gonna have to be done, I just don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. You would know more of the timeline than I do.
Well, I don't know the timeline either.
Phoebe, do you know anything about the plans of the no offices in the?
So I do not have the timeline in front of me for the JJJ project. The sheriff's is still in that JJJ project as a whole. It has never been to start that part of that phase in the first 2 years. It is always based on the timing of when we were demolishing one, taking down one building and moving the other and transferring. It has always been on the back side. I do not have that in front of me. I'm happy to get you that number, but it is not in the first 2 or 3 years. So but it's not pulled out. We will get to it. We will just, it's always been at the back part of the project.
I got one maybe for Kevin. Do you think there's any leases coming up that might be expiring that you might be able to work with the sheriff on to see if they could?
I don't know the space that he needs, much office space.
Well, all I know is that this is approximately 2,872 square feet. 1972 of it are finished out, already has 5 offices in it, which would be conducive to what we have our needs for the narcotics division. So
I can't touch that. I have nothing available for that size at all.
Okay. And we wouldn't have anything available probably next year or so?
No, ma'am, nothing at all. Now, I will say that 5-year lease, I agree with it. I think it's gonna be 5 years until you ever get an admin building for him. If we haven't even approved the funding, that's 2 years out. That's another year, that's 3 years out to actually get the money and then get the project started. And that's another year to get it all together and then another year to build it or 2. So you're 6 or 7 years out, in my opinion.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, the jail project and the juvenile justice center alone, I was told was another year just in design before they even break ground. So, I mean, maybe it's a good idea to lock in that price for 5 years. I don't know. We'll do whatever y'all are willing to do.
Well, I guess the other question is there a penalty if you should break the lease early?
And I have a question, if you could have in the contract, maybe you could sublease it at some point if we.
There is a purpose of sublease. I see in here, it says, subleasee shall not use the premise for any illegal, immoral, or ultra hazardous activity. It looks like there's an option in here for a sublease. I would defer to legal. Do you have this, Jeff? I do not. I'll let you. Let's see, it starts on this page and then it talks about it right here.
Already, sublease.
Let's sublease it again.
I've got a comment. There's a lot of things that we wish we had done 5 years ago that are a lot more expensive now, and this sounds like that might be the case in the future as well. So think about that.
It's a good rate.
Any sublease would require permission from the lessor, which won't be unreasonably be withheld. So it's pretty standard commercial language that we could do it, and they could not withhold that without a good reason.
Claire, Jeff, is it there not also like a 90-day out clause if they want?
I didn't look at that, so.
Did you read that in there? I didn't.
I haven't seen it.
Bobby traditionally puts them in, so I wouldn't be surprised, but. Yeah, it looks like it's a 90-day.
I don't need it. You would 90 days notice. That's good.
Y'all got any questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. Then the next, I think that ends all our resolutions. The next thing is the budget guidelines. Do they have a copy of this?
They do.
Okay.
Is they not? On the bottom of their sack?
Single page.
Basically, I think we've already discussed the salaries, which is a 4% increase.
Well, implementing the study is the first part.
Yeah. Phoebe, I'm gonna let you go to this.
If everyone recalls, when we had met previously to discuss the salary, the pay study that we had hired, so we had that work session, and I think everyone was here and attending, that we determined that based on tenure, time and position, what that looked like based on market and how we were trying to be competitive within our surrounding areas. So with that is these guidelines are we are trying to request permission to move forward with that study and the numbers that were provided during that study. And for us to do that, we'd like to first do a 4% across the board, and then take those numbers from there and kind of evaluate where we are and where we're still short, hitting our 65th percentile of market. Yeah, I was going to say, Claire may add something a little bit extra to that.
It all points, and of course identifying individuals that need to be moved to the minimum based upon the market study.
You were gonna operate, I'm gonna let you do it though.
Oh, my
Your
glasses again.
expertise.
So that is the salaries. So we are asking to move forward with the salary study and those projections. Operating budget, we are starting with the current budget for all operating expenses. And we're asking departments to look at only increases regarding areas such as license agreements and such that are required yearly annual increase. And then take a look at anything that may be for utilities and such, that obviously with just usage and increase in buildings and such that have gone online through the year that may increase. But other than that, continuing to do a status quo and take those one by one to see if we can stay where we are and with our existing budget. New positions, all new positions will be reviewed on case-by-case study. Case-by-case reviewed by a Human Resource Committee. Those will then come to you again. We will discuss those individually, the need. Each department can eloquent to you, kind of tell you why and what they're asking for, and at that point, we can move forward with position either up or down at that point. So new positions will be based by case. Capital expenditures. All capital expenditures will be included in the request. Tonight, as you stated, it is a 5-year broad CIP. So what we do is when it comes to you again under the budget preparation is you will take again case by case, looking at those. Nothing will be moving forward where we can cut, where we think that maybe we were hoping the project or a building construction could start, but as we get into the budget year, it's not going to be able to get online, so we would obviously defer that to the following year. So those would be coming to you on a case-by-case basis as well. And travel, all requests for travel is to be submitted with each detail of each trip. So you will get in your budget packet when those come to you, it will specifically state who's going on the trip, why they're going on the trip, how much is for housing, food, etc. And then those will obviously be deliberated at that point on a case-by-case. Operating budget for nonprofits, we are recommending a 0% operating increase for existing contributions. That means whatever they receive this year will receive next year. And retain all current nonprofit agencies with no current recommendations for additional agencies to be added to that list.
Does anyone have any questions about this?
Just one question, I guess. So this would probably fall under operating budget. So I had sent some emails, I think, to you and Leslie with regards to RFQs for like contract services and insurance. Will that be done before we start getting too deep into the budget process so we can kind of see if there's potential to save money with certain service providers for the county?
Yes, we will. We are going, the RFP for insurance will be going out January. We should receive those back in February. So that will go through this committee as well. Most of our we do annuals for most of our, all of our services. I think mowing is out now, but even on the highway section, we do guardrails, salt. We do annuals for all of those. Those usually come in, they're kind of depending on when when their leases, when they're up, their current contract is up. I think usually around February, March is when we start issuing and start looking at those individually. So that will all be prior to you all making your final decision.
What about like brokerage services? Like if we use anything for health insurance, do we believe we also use services to kind of broker some of our contract services? Would those also be going out for RFP?
Yes, the broker is part of that insurance that we're doing in January.
Any more questions? We don't vote or anything on this, do we? It's just the discussion.
Yes, please.
We do,
I need a
okay.
vote so that I can move forward to know how to start presenting those numbers to you.
Did we need to do a motion to have it? We didn't do a motion to have it on the floor. Do we need to?
You need a motion to accept these proposed guidelines
Okay.
so that we can send them out to the department heads and Phoebe can
Can I
start our
get,
process.
yeah, can I get a motion for the guidelines, please?
Motion.
Second.
Anybody got any more questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor of these guidelines, say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Passes 3-0. I don't think there's anything else. I can't believe Superintendent Golden, we used to have half of our budget was your resolutions and none.
Our numbers have flattened out. We're not having to make a lot of changes in the middle of the year.
That's a good thing. Very good thing. All right. No one has any other business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?